Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Ring Daily. I am on a normal schedule, and he's 3 bottles of wine deep.
Well, I'm one sip of wine deep, but the 3 bottles will probably occur.
How's the temperature, Paul?
It actually got quite toasty today, Brad, but it's calmed down a bit. And, we're not that far from the ocean. I think I mentioned we're like maybe 2 blocks from the ocean. And there's actually kind of a nice little breeze. And it's not like a hot, hair dryer breeze. It's like a nice cool breeze. So actually, it's not bad.
That's nice. Nice, right?
Yeah.
Like I literally have no response to that. It's like I was thinking, maybe I am truly the wind beneath your wings, but that sounded a little.
Let me summarize it. The beautiful place that I'm at is beautiful.
There, that's and delicious food. I can only hope.
At the food, I've been posting stuff to Instagram. It's almost embarrassing how good the food is.
Yeah, I've been looking at that, and that's why.
Yeah.
It's kind of why
we might have a bad meal at some point. It hasn't happened yet.
Maybe you should stay away from the clams.
You win some and you lose some. I probably will have. Actually, I had razor clams this week. Those are clams.
Were they sharp?
Well, they're really long and thin, so they look like razor blades. The shells.
Yeah. But I'll just assume they were sharp.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Paul, it has been officially 1 week since we started playing around with Windows 10s. Any deep revelations after using this for a week?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of this stuff is just confirming what I kind of already felt or knew or whatever. I wrote a bit today about your kind of awful choice of store apps or web apps. I mean, both of which are unfortunately kind of compromised on Windows 10s today, and will continue to be kind of compromised with the Fall Creators Update. But, it's interesting. I mean, Microsoft Edge is actually improving a lot with the Fall Creators Update. It doesn't answer all of my complaints, not by a long shot, but each of the steps we go, each of the versions of Windows 10 seems to make Microsoft Edge less painful to use, and that's a plus, obviously. So, I don't know. I have this tentative article idea in my. Well, I actually put it into a file, but it's almost like it's the gotchas that kind of surprise you. Like if you can't, like, there's little things that are kind of weird. If you go into Edge on Windows 10s and you want to import your settings from another browser, you can't, because you can't actually install another browser, right? Now, you could on another PC export those things. And I haven't tried that, but I will try it before I write anything about it. But it's kind of an interesting example of a number of weird little things you don't get. If you install a scanner, you could plug a scanner in, and it may or may not be able to use it out of the box using the class drivers or whatever. But what you're not going to get are those special profiles and software tools that you get, from the manufacturer. Because to my knowledge, actually there is one. I was going to say there is none. To my knowledge, there are not many UWP-based solutions created for hardware devices. As it turns out, actually, my Dell network printer has such a solution, and that works pretty well. And it lets me do things like find out when I'm low on toner or whatever, and I can order it through the app and that kind of thing. But I just feel like this is a situation we face a lot in the Microsoft ecosystem these days, where because the world has kind of moved on to mobile, we are kind of left hanging a little bit. And so there's always like this little thing that makes something not work for you. And so for Windows Phone, it was obviously various apps and that were never made available on the platform, or various services that were never made available. And we would either have to do without those things or use a third-party app written by a well-meaning individual, not up to the quality standards of the Google or whatever company it might have been. And that's the compromise you have to make when you get into this ecosystem. So to me, like, Windows 10s is a little bit like that. It's a little better than that, but it's kind of similar.
Yeah. I've been using it for a week. I've actually written several articles. Not a big deal, because the editor that I use is called Appytext, which is actually a true universal app.
Yep.
Edge, to your point, Edge is fine, right? It's not. It's not the Ferrari or whatever SUV of the browser industry, but it works. And with each iteration, it's a little bit better. It gets a little bit easier, and the complaints, shrink a little bit each time. So from that aspect, it's fine. Where I'm running into issues, which one of them Microsoft has promised to solve, but it's not here yet. I can't edit any video on this. Not that you necessarily buy a Windows 10s machine to edit video, but I mean, this machine is capable. I edited the entire behind-the-scenes Amsterdam video on it, so it can do that. And Microsoft's video editor, the Story Remix, still isn't here, and I can't use the Adobe app that I use. And then the other thing that's really kind of hanging me up a little bit is, and there is a workaround for this, I use an app called ShareX for screenshots. And while Microsoft does have the snip tool built in, it is not nearly as robust. For example, on every computer that I use besides this one, I have Control-Shift-X as a keyboard shortcut that allows me to do a selector to crop an image or a screenshot and then save it to the desktop automatically. And as Paul knows, and anybody else who probably reads our content knows, we take a lot of screenshots per week because they're the hero images of every single post. And so a snipping tool isn't quite good enough. I mean, it works, but to be honest, probably a bigger compromise for me than using Edge or Chrome.
Yeah, interesting. It's funny. All of us have our own workflow and our own habits and our own way of doing things, and the apps we use, whatever. You and I are writers, and so we have a particular need along those lines. Behavior change is important. I mean, it's something I kind of preach and I try, and I think one of the things I kind of do in the background that people may not be aware of is I'm constantly trying to be more efficient or try different ways of doing things. I'm open to using Windows 10s and to making it work for me. I did buy the premium version of Appy Text, by the way. And
did you?
When you do that, you get a couple of additional features. But one of them is the ability to do side-by-side with Live Preview and Markdown, which is the thing I really like about Markdown Pad and some of the other Markdown editors that you get on the desktop or the web. And that's actually really cool. And you get the ability to open multiple documents in tabs. And there are probably other things too. But, Appy Text, it's one of those things like, it's quirky like any app. I mean, you're not used to yet, but it works fine. I think it works fine. Like you, probably, I would right now throw $90 at Adobe if they would just release Premiere Elements to the store. I would be so happy if they did that. And I bet there are a lot of people watching and listening to this who would be so happy if Microsoft would just put Movie Maker into the store in, a desktop bridge kind of container. It would just make life so easy. I mean, it's interesting. I think for most people, the issue is there's going to be that one thing, and it may be that screenshot tool that you use. It may be the video editing, whatever it is. But you kind of hit that hard stop, and you're like, the truth is, I just can't use this. And I'm looking for when that changes for me, right? And I'm trying to adapt where I can, but I think the goal here is things need to happen on Microsoft's end for this to be truly applicable to everybody.
And I would not be surprised if we see more kind of evolution of Windows 10s. I don't know how you feel about this, but to me it felt a little bit rushed, like they just came out with and said, okay, here it is, this is what we're doing. It wouldn't be surprising to me if we see things and I don't exactly know where they would take it, but I suspect this is Windows 10s v1.0, and it will slowly morph.
Yeah. The one thing that's been lacking in Windows S development so far has been external feedback, right? And so now that it's kind of out in the world, that can start to happen. I still think that the key goal here is to get that thing out to Windows Insiders primarily. I think that's going to be the big thing that changes. But, it's funny. I did hear from let's say a source at Microsoft, someone who chooses to remain nameless, that, internally they basically view the current implementation of Windows 10s to essentially be a beta, and that they're targeting specific use cases, obviously education, but also business users who don't want to be held back by the problems of Win32, even though there are so many benefits as well. And right now it's kind of in limited release. Like you and I have asked, like, why can't insiders get this? Why can't anyone install this and replace the version of Windows 10 that they already have? I mean, it's a thing. Like, why can't you just, use it? And I think the reason is they're trying to make sure that it makes sense for a broader audience before they make it available to that broader audience. And so, I don't know. We live in a world of like kind of soft launches, right? And I think this started arguably back in the 1990s with web sites and so forth that were never feature complete. And one of the famous things about Google back in the day was that when they released new services to the web at that time, because you would access them on your desktop, they were never ready. They were always like 10% off from being ready because they felt that they needed the feedback from actual users to kind of make something that was feature complete. And so you were always like, remember, Google products were always kind of perpetually in beta. And, in a way, I don't mean to say this in a callous way, but Windows 10 in general, Windows 10s specifically, is kind of always in beta. They're actively seeking feedback at least, but sometimes they just kind of throw stuff out there, and it's like, what do you think? Could you use this? Maybe.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. The biggest reason I agree with that is the Office Store apps, which if you download and install Windows 10 apps right now, you can't get them. They're only for people who have purchased a Surface laptop. So
right, which is goofy, by the way.
Very much.
But yeah, so we don't know the time frame, but if you pretend it's 1 year, there's going to be some gradual rollout of this stuff, and so the Surface laptop owners can get Office 365 Personal very easily. It's kind of built in. They can get Office 365 Home pretty easily if they do the right searches on the store. And then Microsoft has already said that the business versions of Office 365 won't be coming into the store until next year. But between now and then, hopefully they just open up the consumer stuff to anybody who has it. And then over some period of time, basically every version of Office 365, ideally individual Office apps, will just become available. We don't know for sure, but if you were able to jump forward 1 year in time, a lot of the issues we have now, I think, will be resolved.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it'll be I don't know. The story is just starting for Windows 10s, and we'll see what Microsoft truly has up their sleeve for. I don't want to use the word forcing people towards it, but giving a gentle nudge from behind the shoulder blades, if you will.
Yeah.
So
look, I mean, if you overcome the limitations, which are real, the truth is this is a better system. If you could use Windows 10s, and today I would say not exactly zero, but basically 0% of people can. It's not. But, again, key apps are key, obviously, and the improving some of the built-in stuff in Windows 10 would make a huge difference as well, especially around Microsoft Edge. And I would also argue the inbox apps like the mail, calendar, whatever. Like that stuff should be not just solid; it should be awesome and great examples of what UWP apps can be. And I'd say today they're just terrible examples of what they can be because this is unfortunately what they're like.
Yeah, yep. I do not disagree with you, which is not something I always say.
Yep. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine this time. Just this time, though. Something else that came out, and it's probably not, well, maybe it is, no, you'll know where I head with this. So Honeywell actually announced Google Home integration. Fine.
Yep.
It's just really hitting home on the point that every day that Invoke or a Cortana-related device that is not available is just one more step that it's falling behind.
So, yeah, and interestingly, the way that Honeywell described this was, we are now compatible with all of the personal digital assistant devices, meaning they were already on Alexa, and I guess they are compatible with HomeKit, which is how you get into the Apple ecosystem. No mention of Cortana, semi-related to this. I don't know if you saw this. It was I would never normally laugh at anything that happens on the Ellen TV show, but apparently they did like a goof video on different personal digital assistant devices competing with each other. And so what they did was they had Siri go up against Alexa, go up against Google Home. And in this goofy ad, there was such an awesome slogan that should be Google advertising. It said, we didn't name our digital assistant after a woman's name like Siri or Alexa because that is stupid. It was like, it was funny, to me, but also no mention of Cortana, because Cortana is not part of the conversation, and that's the problem.
Yeah, it's tough. Right? You almost wonder if it wouldn't behoove Microsoft to just. I don't even know if there are licensing fees with Cortana. I can't imagine that there would be to ingest that into like the Invoke
right.
Or anything else like that. I mean, you would have to think that it would be in their best interest to go to everything and everybody and say, if you put a microphone in there, you can use Cortana for free.
Yep. Yeah, give them like a Windows IoT kind of thing or whatever. Just make it work.
Yeah.
So the problem is they've tried this kind of stuff in the past. They tried to pay developers to create Windows Phone apps. Mm-hmm. It didn't work. There's kind of a tidal wave that happens when it comes to adoption of platforms, and the tidal wave that already wiped out Microsoft and mobile, which was Android and iOS, is helping these other digital assistants which run on those platforms to do the same thing to Cortana.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I don't know. I haven't heard. I think it's launching Q4, but we still haven't heard anything specific. My gut would tell me probably October, maybe. Because if they're going to sell it, they want it out before the holiday shopping season, that's for sure. And they want to give it as much runway as possible because you don't want to create this thing and then only have 10 units that you can actually sell. So
right.
So
by the way,
you can take it. Yeah.
Low carb.
And what specifically is that? Just white wine, champagne? What are you drinking?
This is sparkling cava, for lack of a better term. It's like a Spanish sparkling wine.
Is it delicious?
Brad, if I could run inside and grab more out of the refrigerator right now without it being a little weird, I'd probably do that.
Other things that happened, Raphael yesterday, who will actually be on the show next week, he's going to make his video debut.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be good. He's going to help with We Help Wednesday. So if you got any technical questions, save them for next Wednesday so that I can direct them towards him and take a nap while he attempts to answer them. He was able to basically crack the nut open on Groove Music and discover that, remember those visualizations from Windows Media Player way back? Paul, I was trying to remember, when did those get introduced? I thought it was 98.
I can tell you. Yeah, no, it was with Windows Me and Windows Media Player 7 series or whatever it was called. It was the first version of their all-in-one player, and it supported those visualizations.
Yeah, and so we don't know when they're coming back, but they are coming back. Raph was able to open them up and actually get to see them, and I'm assuming play with them. He didn't post any image or videos of it, but he did take screenshots, and so that gives you a little bit of hope that those will be coming back soon. And I got to tell you, as petty as this is, this might actually get me to try out Groove Music because Spotify doesn't do this, and I like flashy things.
Yeah. Speaking of Spotify, I don't know if this is in the notes because I can't see them, but Spotify for Xbox One has been spotted in the wild.
Yep.
And this is very interesting to me on a number of levels. One of which is the fact that Spotify did not make a UWP app for Windows 10. They elected to take the existing desktop app and wrap it in a desktop bridge container and sell it through the store that way, which is fine. But they did make one for Xbox One, and so it sort of begs the question, why you're already making a UWP app, why not make a native Windows 10 app as well? Mm-hmm. That is essentially the same app across Windows 10 and Xbox One.
The only thing I can think of that makes any sort of small bit of sense is maybe it's just a web wrapper for their web interface.
Okay. Yeah, fair. Plus, the Xbox One version can be a lot simpler. No one is going to sit down at an Xbox One with a controller and manage their music account or their music library. You're going to do that stuff on a PC, and you want the full fidelity of the desktop app or whatever. Yeah, no, that's true.
That's exactly what you want. So,
yep.
It is Friday, and on Friday we always take a look back about some of our better comments. There's always a lot actually to choose from. This week we have two. One from Pretty Confused talking about the Groove visualization. He says, this stuff is all great. Glad to see Groove is finally filling out continuously. The lack of a free ad-supported version in Family Plan is still stumbling them, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can insert Microsoft product name here and then list the same exact problems that happen all the time, which is basically this. There are really popular solutions that do the same thing. They work across platform. They're excellent, and they do the things that people want in the Microsoft solution already. And so Microsoft may get there eventually, right? They have a kind of a rich history of doing that. But does anyone actually believe that Groove is ever going to be some mainstream music service that is actually mentioned in mainstream publications alongside Spotify and Apple Music and even Tidal or Pandora or whatever else? I mean, the truth is there's this kind of pecking order when it comes to everything. And in the music world, after those things, you get down to like the Amazon Music Service, and then you get down to weird stuff you've never heard of because it's like internet radio stuff.
Yeah.
And you never get to Groove. Groove is never mentioned. And it's just, I think this is, again, that tidal wave effect. It's just, the body of Windows 10 users is not big enough to sustain this thing. I give them all the credit in the world. The truth is, the guys on the Groove team, like you said, and like what the reader said, are in fact updating this thing all the time. They over the past year, they've added a tremendous number of useful new features to this thing, and it's actually a good-looking app. I would say, in the scope of like UWP apps on Windows 10, it's arguably one of the better ones. But it's the problem is just one of ambivalence on the part of the user base. Like I just don't think it's ever really going to take off.
Yeah,
which is too bad.
Yep. I would actually be really curious if any readers have seen any advertisements for Groove. I don't want to say I'm disconnected from the world, but I don't really watch TV. I don't read too many magazines. I am on Facebook and Twitter frequently, and I've never seen Groove really mentioned anywhere other than this podcast. So
yep, never.
Yeah. So if you have seen an advertisement, please let me know. I'd love to actually see it and see what Microsoft is trying to do. Next comment comes from Maniscaler or something on Surface Plus. He says, this is relating to the Surface Plus program for buying a new Surface device. He says, does anyone really care about USB Type-C Thunderbolt 3? It's not really that well used yet. It's buggy and it's certainly confusing.
Let me try to do this without making fun of the guy that said this, because I'm sorry, but that's incorrect. Other PC makers have figured this out, and USB-C / Thunderbolt 3 is future-proof. It is the one connector / I guess protocol or whatever to rule them all. This is a thing that can drive 2 4K displays at once, 60 frames per second, plus every single USB device you've ever wanted to use. I have not written about this yet. I have shared this information with Brad, but I'd like to maybe provide a little bit of insider information about Surface Laptop and these products and what's going on with Microsoft and Surface and why don't they support modern technology in Surface. And the reason is that this stuff is basically inventory flush. These are products that were actually invented internally at Microsoft years ago, so long ago that Julie Larson-Green was in fact still there. And all they're doing is just going through the motions of releasing the things they already developed years ago, and they really don't have anything new to offer. There is a new hub coming in 2019, I'm told, and there will be that Andromeda thing that everybody thinks is Windows Mobile again. But those things have all been in the pipeline for years, and so I kind of made fun of Microsoft a little bit for talking about the lack of innovation at other PC makers or at Apple specifically, and then releasing their first laptop here in 2017. The truth is, this thing was developed internally years ago, and they just didn't see a reason to release it because it's just a laptop. But the internal platform that Microsoft uses in Surface is years old, and it's out of date. And the Surface connector thing, which is USB 3 based, is not particularly powerful or extensible, and it's a problem. So I agree with everybody when you look at a Surface Book or a Surface Pro or a Surface Laptop and you say, it's a really beautiful machine. But when you start defending their use of USB 3 technology and not even having a single USB-C / Thunderbolt 3 port, that's when I lose the script, because they are completely out of time with the rest of the PC industry. And I mean the entire rest of the PC industry. There is no other PC maker of any type who doesn't support these technologies. They are way behind the times. So, you know what? I get it. You like Microsoft, maybe you love Surface, whatever it is, but let's not be stupid about the future. There is no such thing as a machine you're going to be using 4 years from now that doesn't have those ports on it. There just isn't, unless you buy a Surface. So, congratulations, Microsoft. But the truth is, this stuff is out of date, like as sold here in 2017. There's just no excuse for it. So I don't know if I'm ever going to write about this stuff, but I have pretty good sources.
Yeah. And what it seems to be, based on what you just said about it was in the pipeline, the catalyst for launching the Surface laptop was actually Windows 10s.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those things. It's like, what do we have for this? Like, I know from talking to Microsoft that one of the important things they wanted to get across about Windows 10s is that it wasn't just for low-end devices. They didn't want people to think this was some stripper OS, like a starter edition, like they did back in the day to fight Linux.
Yep.
Yes, part of its goal is to fight back against Chrome, and that's an excellent conversation to be had about whether or not that's effective or not. But that is not the only point of this system, and that's something I've kind of tried to drive home since, I don't know, February or January even, I don't remember. But I think that's why this thing was resuscitated, because the truth is, Microsoft has kind of realized that these, innovative form factors that they've been working on, which are cool. I mean, the Surface Pro has kind of formalized this 2-in-1 market. The Surface Studio is obviously an amazing looking device. The Surface Book, despite the weird hinge or whatever, is a fantastic laptop, actually. I mean, I wish the screen didn't detach. Like, otherwise, it's perfect. Look, it's not hard doing the math on market share and how many, they don't ever say how many they sell, but you can look at market share, the usage numbers, and kind of figure it out. I mean, they're not making a dent per se, but what they are doing, which is kind of important, is driving the overall design of the PC industry, showing PC makers how you can move things forward. And how weird is it that they're not doing it in this one key area? Mm-hmm. There is no major PC maker that has not supported this technology. I'd also point out that there is no major PC maker that had a problem with the Skylake parts that Intel made, except for Microsoft. And those problems were really serious. And so whatever the truth is behind all that stuff, Microsoft basically blamed Intel. In fact, Microsoft got into such a problem with Intel. Remember, they weren't going to support Windows 7 or Windows 8X on Skylake chipsets in the very beginning. There's a story there. Right, but as far as like Surface goes, exactly, that problem was unique to Surface. Surface devices today, I feel like they've kind of gotten ahead of the reliability problems, but they're still devices that are like a generation or two old because they're based on the Surface Connect technology. It's just out of date. So if that doesn't bother you, please. Use a Surface device. It's fine. Like, I'm actually using a Surface Book right now. I really like this device. But do I see this as a long-term play, like 4 years down the road? No way.
Yep. And not to defend Microsoft, in some fairness to the Surface Book, that platform will be 2 years old here in October.
Yeah, 2 years. Is there a PC maker on Earth that lets 2 years go by before they rev a model that they intend to continue with, right? Probably not.
So, in the comments, Virtual Dan Man says, nope, no advertising for Groove anywhere. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, right. There's kind of a chicken egg problem. I mean, there is no human being on Earth that could show up at Microsoft and make Groove successful, right? It's not because they don't advertise it enough. It's not because the mobile app versions on Android and iOS are not good enough. There are things it doesn't do that it should. Support things like Apple TV, right? Or Android TV, or Fire TV. Like, it should be on Roku. You can make all those arguments. These are huge problems. If those things all happened, would Groove be successful? I think we have to be honest. I mean, no, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think it matters. I don't think there's anything they can do. It's too bad.
You're bringing a tear to my visualization eyes.
I know. Sorry.
So, Paul, you are taking next week off, correct?
Yes. Well, from the podcast, yeah.
From the podcast, yep. And so on that front,
I'm going to write every morning. Yeah.
Yeah, and so on the podcast front, I've already lined up a couple guests. We'll see if we can fill out the entire week. But the show will go on because we don't need Paul anyways. So.
Yep. This is going to be a comeuppance for me because everyone will realize that I'm really just a negative.
I think we all knew that anyways. So what else? What do you got going on this weekend, Paul?
So we've got we've got friends coming out here to Barcelona. They're staying in a hotel nearby. I think I'm probably not going to do this myself, but I think they're going to go, and some people in my family will go up to there's a Dali museum that's a couple hours up the coast, which I think is interesting. I just can't. I just don't want to take that much time off. I plan to eat my metric weight in ham, if I can, during this trip. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty close to already achieving that goal because there's a lot of ham here.
So I don't know if you know this. Why ham, though? I mean, I know it's delicious and it's great.
Oh, I should say, yes. Why ham? So when I say the word ham, like an American imagines this pink, flavorless piece of meat that they get in like a plastic wrapper and they put on a sandwich with cheese and mustard or whatever. That's not what ham is here. So ham here is the most precious of pork that is made from these black pigs that eat only acorns. It's all certified and legal and whatever, so that you're getting the real stuff. And so this Iberico ham is like, they basically take the haunch, like the leg of the animal, they mount it up on this thing and they kind of thin slice it. It's cured essentially, so it's a little bit like prosciutto, except it's prosciutto that's made in heaven, because once you eat this, you will realize that prosciutto is the garbage that it always was. Like, no matter how much you think that might be good, once you have like a Iberico ham, like, you could never eat prosciutto again. It's not the same thing. It is one of the most heavenly food items on earth. It's the type of thing that you put it in your mouth and it's laced with fat, so it's awesome for you. And it literally melts in your mouth. It's got that kind of tannic effect from the acorns that are in it. And so you kind of feel it back in your, the corners of your chin or whatever. Just thinking about it, I'm getting that effect in my mouth. It's it's amazing. And you can't export it. So they have close approximations of this in France. There are actually 2 places I know of in the United States that make something a little bit like it, including a place in Hudson Valley, New York, upstate New York, which is pretty good. And there's a place in Northern California as well. But this is pretty much it. This is Jamón Ibérico, I guess Jamón Ibérico Central, I guess we would call it, and it is amazing.
Well, I am now disappointed in my food choices for the day.
Sorry, whatever you have tonight, whatever it is, will not be as good.
I can tell you it will not be as good as that. That was
yeah. It might be good, but it will not be that good. Yeah.
It will not be that good. It will not be that good. So, well, I'm sure that I'm talking to you, but definitely have a good weekend in Spain, and you'll be back. When do you come home?
I think we fly a week from Monday. So I don't know what's happening. So next week you're going to be doing the show with whoever else or whatever.
Yep.
The following week, Suncast had mentioned he was going to be gone Monday and Tuesday, and actually that would, us not doing the show at all those days would make tons of sense, because I fly Monday, and then Tuesday I'm going to be driving to Pennsylvania in a U-Haul truck, and let me tell you, after approximately 10 hours of international travel, I'm going to be in great shape for that. So I recommend to anyone paying attention to this not to stay off the 95 corridor area. If you drive, just watch out for U-Haul trucks. That's going to be interesting.
Are you coming back on the 14th or the 21st?
21st.
Oh, so
is that a Monday?
Well, a week. Monday is the 7th, and then a week from Monday is the 14th.
Oh, so it must be the 14th. So yeah. Sorry. So we closed on my house on the 22nd, which is why I said the 21st. But actually, the week before that, we go down to Pennsylvania. We come back. The movers come. They take all the stuff away. Then we close on the house. Yeah.
Yep. So
it's a mess.
And we look forward to August 28th, when Paul will be slightly less stressed, hopefully.
Yep.
So.
Although, by the way, fun fact, I've been sleeping horribly since this whole move thing for some reason. It's been really bad. And this home has these remote controllable metallic shades that kind of come down. They're almost like security shades, except that they don't really have them everywhere, but they have them in the bedrooms. And so you can kind of push a button and it becomes perfectly pitch dark in the room. And so like last night, for example, typical night here, I went to bed actually on the early side for Barcelona, but it was 11:30. And then I woke up naturally, whatever. And I usually get up around 6:30 in the morning at home.
Yep.
And I looked at my Fitbit to see what the time was. And my wife was aware that I was doing this. And she said, "What time is it?" And I said, "It is apparently 9:35." And I had slept for 10 hours. And I haven't slept for 10 hours since I was a baby. So apparently the lack of light really helps. Who knew?
Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? So, alrighty. As a reminder, everybody, we do this Monday through Friday. It's not always live. Well, it's only live on Fridays, but we do it Monday through Thursday as well. And you can catch us right back here next week with some special guests lined up on First Ring Daily. Thanks for tuning in.